Toastmaster. So I would like to have a show of hands of everybody who, anyone who knows or has heard of Srinivasa Ramanujan. No. Okay. All right. Well, Ramanujan was the main character, and he is a real person who lived about a century ago. He was the main character of the film, The Man Who Knew Infinity. So here I'm going to cover three main areas. I will give a little about the background of Ramanujan. The second point is I will discuss the main point that I consider to be the focus, the point of focus from the movie. And number three, my reflections that I have received from this movie. Ramanujan was an Indian mathematician of the highest caliber. He was born in 1887 to a poor family in southern India, and that family was Orthodox Hindu. They, in particular, worshiped the goddess Namajiri. Ramanujan was always someone in poor health. He suffered a lot from that in his life. In fact, this is what is the cause of his death at an early age in 1920, when he was 32 years old. Ramanujan has given us mathematical equations that are still being used to solve cosmic problems even now. He had almost no formal training in pure mathematics, but he made substantial contributions to mathematical analysis, number theory, continued fractions, and in particular, infinite series. He himself was Orthodox Hindu and also worshiped the goddess Namajiri, who he said came to him in dreams, even from a young age throughout his life, and gave him the inspired mathematical formulas that he wrote down in his notebooks. So in 1914, when he was around 26 years old, to 1919, he went and lived in Cambridge. Well, he was in Cambridge University, at Trinity College, and worked under the mentorship of G.H. Hardy. And before he left in 1919, he had received a degree from Cambridge and became a fellow of the Royal Society. But in 1919, his health was so poor that he had to go back to India and traveled back to India and died a year later. So now, in looking at the movie, The Man Who Knew Infinity, which came out in 2015, this focuses on Ramanujan at the time that he was in Cambridge under this mentorship of Hardy. And I was just infatuated with this movie. For quite some time, I really wanted to understand why that made such an impression on me. So what it shows to us in the movie is that Hardy and Ramanujan had highly contrasted personalities. In fact, even throughout their collaboration, they really had to work through a clash of different cultures, beliefs, and working styles. On one hand, Ramanujan was a very deeply religious man, and he relied very much on his intuition, insights, and inspiration. In fact, he said that an equation means nothing to me unless it expresses a thought of God. On the other hand, Hardy had been highly schooled in mathematical equations, mathematical proofs, and the need for mathematical formulas to be proved so that they could be considered valid after that, to pass that test. Also, Hardy was an atheist. During the time they were together, Hardy knew that he didn't want to thwart the inspiration of Ramanujan. So at the same time, he knew that he needed to communicate the need for the formal proofs to support Ramanujan's results of his equations. And so this was a real balancing act for him. So now my reflections on this movie. This is when I moved into a deeper understanding. I made abstraction of these two contrasting characters and their personalities and what they represent to me. On one hand, Ramanujan was steeped in what we historically consider Eastern philosophy, which really involves the development of the mind through spiritual knowledge and inspiration from the inner realms. As a part of this, Ramanujan knew that he was just a little piece in this much greater whole. And so he submitted and committed to the process of receiving knowledge and truth, what he considered truth, through inspiration. He knew that he was not the owner of this, that it was important to share this with his fellow man, because this is part of bringing it out to the greater whole. Then Hardy was schooled in Western philosophy, which is the development of the mind through logical thought. This is historically Western philosophy. And he knew that in order to take any abstract thought and make it available and useful to others, they needed to be passed through the filter of logic, mathematical and scientific proofs in his case. And this meant taking the steps designed to prove the validity of these abstract or inspired thoughts, and which would allow for the distribution of logically formulated knowledge to others, even the masses. It would make it available. Another piece in this is that from the beginning of the 1900s, and that's around the time that these two men worked together, there was an increased cross-pollination of these two ways of thinking and development of the mind. And this happened through travel and the development of knowledge exchange. This has only accelerated over the years, and it also allows us today to develop both halves of this whole, which I consider that these two characters represent. They were bringing this together. They were part of they were just a piece in bringing these two ways of thinking together to make it into a whole. So my takeaway is that we're not all great thinkers, but we each have these two capacities inside of us. They may be one or the other of them may be rather latent, but we have them. We all have them. Me, coming from my Western thought primarily, it was the development of my logical thinking that was encouraged through my schooling and everything else. So it took me a while to understand that it was really important for me to develop my inner understanding, intuition, inspiration, and insights. But somebody else may be the opposite, where they have to bring it up. So because what's important is to bring a balance to these two areas of ourselves. And all through life, we're constantly working on that balance as we learn things, whether it's inwardly or we can validate them through applying our knowledge to this. This is what I take away from this movie and the understanding of this historical meeting of these two men. And I continue to learn from it. And I hope this has been of use to you all too. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Fellow Toastmasters, and especially Khorsian, your talk was really great tonight. You took a subject that I had no idea about, and a person that I had never heard of, and you turned that person and that subject into something that now, when I hear that name again, I'll think, oh yeah, I remember the man who knew infinity, and I'll remember a little bit about him and how he was able to shape mathematics, and then through through logic and inspiration. I really enjoyed how you put your speech together and explained to us how you were going to tell us the various things. You basically introduced the talk, and then you did the thing of naming the three components of what you were going to say, and then you brought it all back together again at the end to a really great way of organization. This talk I felt was super inspired. It felt like you were speaking from the heart, felt like you knew a lot about your topic. And that's what the purpose of this talk was, writing a speech with purpose. You did a fantastic job of explaining this mathematician and what he did for the world and how he did it through the realm of logic and inspiration, and how that person was connected with the other person. The only thing that I would suggest that would enhance your speech a little bit would be to bring in some sort of visual, maybe a PowerPoint or something like that. I say that because there were times when I wouldn't quite catch everything that you were trying to say, or everything that you were saying. So for me, the visuals would really help with understanding and better conveying of the topic. But altogether, really great job. I thought it was excellent. Thank you.